Good morning, everyone. My name is Lenzy M. Farol, and I am a reporter of Group 4 of Test and Testing. And I am here to continue the report on some assumptions about psychological testing and assessment. My topic outline is from Assumption 3 up to Assumption 7. My intended learning outcomes are the students are able to understand the remaining assumptions, to learn the different ideas behind these functions, and to be able to either idealize different assumptions on when taking a test or testing. Assumption 3. Test related behavior predicts non-test related behavior. The objective of such tests typically has little to do with predicting future grid blocking or key pressing behavior. Rather, the objective of this test is to provide some indication of the other aspects of the examinee's behavior. In some forensic or legal matters, psychological tests may be used as not to predict, but behavior to post-dict it. That is, to aid the understanding of behavior that has already taken place. Some example of the test must be the obtained measures or sample of behavior can be also used to make predictions about future behavior. So in assumption 3, it states that tests or assessments are not only used to measure one's capabilities, but also to predict and predict foresight or um, and post-dict or according to the module post-dict, it wishes to understand behavior that already has been taken place. Now to move, assumption 4, tests and other measurement techniques have strengths and weaknesses. That test users know the test they use and aware of the test limitations. They understand, among other things, how a test was developed and the circumstances under which it is appropriate to administer the test, how the test should be administered, and to whom and how the result should be interpreted. So in assumption 4, uh, it states that every test and measurement techniques for assessment and test is always have strength and weaknesses. So assessor must an assessor must uh, administer the test to the appropriate audience or assessees. Now to proceed to assumption 5. Various sources of error are part of the assessment process. Error variance is a variable that must be taken account in any form of test and assessment measurement. It is difficult to try to and control extraneous variables, so you must learn to handle it. Handling error variance. Now, how to handle error variance? Treat subjects within a group as similarly as possible. So kapag so this assumption 5 is focusing that error is not only based on mistakes but a variable that should be taken as error changes one's perception and mind according to the stimuli perpetrate that perpetrate the error. Error refers to a long-standing assumption that factors other than what test attempts to measure will influence performance on the test. Test scores are always subject to questions about the degree to which the measurement process includes error. Now let me introduce you to the classic tools for accounting error. This is what the module states or classified. The first of the two is classical test theory. Classical test theory is a body of related psychometric theory that predicts outcomes of psychological testing, such as the difficulty of items or the abilities of test takers. It is a theory of tests based on the idea that a person's observed or obtained score on a test is the sum of the true score and an error score. So in the CTT, or the classical test theory, whatever the error and right answers of a assessee is always taken down as the observed score or the obtained score of that assessee. On the other hand, the item response theory is a paradigm for the design, analysis, and scoring of tests, questionnaires, and similar instruments measuring abilities, attitude, or other variables. The item response theory naman is accounting error for every variable and for every variable of the assessee or every abilities and the instrument weaknesses is accounted for item response theory. For an assessee responds to what he is stimulated to. Now let us proceed to assumption 6, which is testing and assessment can be conducted in a fair and unbiased manner. Decades of core challenges to various tests and testing programs have been synthesized to develop to developers and users to the social demand for fair tests used in a fair manner. Today, all major test publishers strive to develop instruments that are fair when used in strict accordance with the guidelines in the test manuals. Differences such as culture can cause a test to result in an inaccurate and unfair. Therefore, it is important to be continue taking steps to help ensure unbiases. In many cases, the real question for debate is not is this a test or assessment procedure fair, but rather what do we as a society wish to accomplish by the use of this test or assessment procedure. In all, in all questions about this test with regard to fairness, it is important to keep in mind that tests are tools. And just like any other tools, like we are familiar, like hammer, saw, and a blade, they can be used properly or improperly. Now, let us proceed to the assumption 7 of test and testing is testing and assessment of benefits society. At first glance, the prospect of a world devoid of testing and assessment might seem appealing, especially from the perspective of a hurried student preparing for a week of midterm examination. So, in a world without tests, there would be a great need for instruments to diagnose educational difficulties in reading and math and point the way to remediation. In a world without tests, there would be no instruments to diagnose neuropsychological impairments. How does testing and assessment benefit the society? Testing and assessment benefits society by making sure the right people are trained to deal with certain issues And that is why it is important for the future therapists and clinician to be trained properly to deal with people from all different backgrounds. So in assumption 7, it is said that society without testing could be uh, could be in shambles, as persons without credibility can account himself or herself as credible to a task that he or she is not familiar with. For example, of this, it could lead to political misdirection, or or any another example for this is when a self-proclaimed engineer starts to build a building, or a building without any backgrounds on engineering, without taking any tests in engineering. That building is uh, structurally impaired, for as the one that made it has no background towards making a building. This is what assumption 7 is stating, that the society needs tests to find people that is credible for the right job, for and for those people to uh, uh, find their right positions in society. Summary: these assumptions works to let the assessee and the assessor to understand the inner workings of a test and assessment. That whether what test they take, it will always have this characteristic, if not all, maybe some.